Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kim Lockett, and I'm Head of Marketing here at Knowi. With me today is Lorraine Williams, our Head of Success. Thanks for taking the time today to join us for our Q2 product update webinar. We have some exciting stuff to show you today. But before we get in there, I want to just talk about a couple of housekeeping items. So we are recording the webinar, and we will be sending out the recording after the session. You guys are all on mute, but if you go ahead and click on the Q&A button, which is on the bottom bar of your screen, you can enter in any questions, and then we'll field them towards the end of the session. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Lorraine.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Good morning and afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Q2 Knowi product update. I'm going to touch on some of the main features that have gone into the product over the last few months. But before I get into specifics, I'd just like to remind you all that full documentation and release notes for Knowi can be found at docs.knowi.com. All docs are fully searchable, so type in a keyword in here will usually get you to the right spot. Release notes can be found under the What's New tab here. Also we have a knowledge base section where you can find our main documentation. And we also have a community forum, so if you want to, feel free to post any questions on there, or even answer any if you know the answers to those. And if all else fails, then obviously sending an email to support@knowi.com will get our attention, and then we'll do what we can to assist you as soon as possible. So with that, I'm going to go back into the application and show you what we've been doing. So the main feature that we incorporated into Knowi in Q2 incoming data and identify any unusual patterns that do not conform to obviously expected behavior. So it pretty much works by first building a time series model, which is used to compute the expected value at time t. And then a number of errors, which are computed by comparing the expected value to the actual value that is at time t. And then we automatically determine the thresholds on the errors and then output the most probable anomalies. So just like with our supervised learning setup for classification and regression, the first step you would take here is to create your workspace and select your model type. So I'm going to just create, I think it's the 8th today, isn't it? Or the 9th? It's the 8th, okay, that's a good start. Now I'm going to select Anomaly Detection. I'm going to go in. So this is the main page that we have right here to set up our Anomaly Detection. The first thing I'm going to do is select the data that my time series data. So I already have a little network example here, network traffic example. As usual, I could do some Cloud9 QL manipulation on that data if I wished. I'm not going to do that here, but I can if I wish. Now I need to select my x-axis variable, which in time series would be your date or time field. And then the numerical attribute that I wish to do my anomaly detection against. So here I'm going to choose a remote ISP. From there, I have several algorithms that I can choose from to run this data through. So I'm going to choose the Olympic seasonal naive model here. I can also preview my data before I go any further, just to make sure that it looks, the incoming data looks as I expect. And then I'm going to run my analysis. So as you can see, that went through and ran, and it highlighted some anomalies. I can also go into the settings on this and change the band that I want to look at. If I could lower that band, it would rerun. And obviously the anomalies detected would be fewer. So basically what I was doing there was I was just basically changing the confidence here, that confidence level right there. I can then go in and add another analysis. I might want to do a different algorithm. So I might want to do a moving average. I run another analysis, slightly different. I can zoom in and have a look what it's saying right there. So, and I can keep going and build up my portfolio of time series anomaly analyses on this page. Now for each one of these, you see that there are several options. I can set alerts for each one, and each alert can be different on looking at a different thing. So if I select on alerts here, I obviously give it an alert name. And then I can select alerting frequency. I can also skip if the alert's exactly the same as the last alert. And then I have several options. It's very similar to our current alerting options with our regular data sets and also with our email functionality. So you can email this anomaly or the results of this anomaly detection. And you can also attach the full data set as a CSV if you wish. You can also call an API to a third-party product with that CSV in the payload. And you can also Slack that data to a channel as well. So for each one of these analyses, you have the option to set its own alert right there. And then another thing that we have here is you can also save these widgets. And by saving these widgets, you can then syndicate this data onto a dashboard that your users can consume. So your users don't have to come in to the machine learning module to see the results of this analysis. I can, for example, save this widget as August 7th, for example. And then when I go into a dashboard, I can then just drag and drop that into there for syndication, for regular syndication for my users. So again, they don't have to go into the machine learning module to actually be able to do that. So as you can probably tell, anomaly detection was one of our larger areas that we focused on over the last few months. However, we have also added some other neat features too. So I'm going to go and nip over to our visualization section and go through a couple of new entrants. So I'll go to this basic dashboard I have here, and I'm going to just click on settings here for this. This is our original grid, but we do actually have a new grid. So a little bit of a different look and feel to it. You can still do all the other things like changing the headers and the font colors and all that sort of thing. You can also do aggregations at column level. So there are, okay, it's a new look and feel basically. But if I save that and go back to my dashboard, I want to just show you a couple of new things with this. So obviously we still have the ability to, for example, do things like conditional formatting. So I could say, okay, if this equals, Facebook, if I can spell it properly, then I want it to be yellow, and maybe the font color, I want it to be black, for example. So I can still do things like conditional formatting. I can still go in and also literally format cells. So I could say that, okay, in this instance, it's a date, but I can actually format that date into whatever format that I wish. And I can do things like percentages and other things like that, and I can line the cells. One other benefit of this new grid is not only the look and feel of it, but also the fact that you can now download it to Excel format. So basically whatever you see here, if you swap the columns around, or if you made the columns wider, or if you did some conditional formatting on it, when you do a download, it would actually look exactly like it does on the screen here. That doesn't happen with our old, the existing grid. So if you want to be able to download exactly what you see, you might want to consider moving or just changing from the existing grid to the new type of grid. And then there's one other thing that this new grid allows us to do, and that is to embed some other chart options as a cell here. So I'm going to just do a very quick example of how you can do that. So I'm going to basically click on or drag in a couple of fields here. Clicks, I don't want that, I want a date. I'm going to group by week. So these are emails per customer by week, or week of date. And I'm also going to sort by week of date in ascending order. So basically for each customer, how many clicks for a particular week. I'm then going to add another step to this. Now basically what we're doing under the hood here is basic Cloud9 QL. So if you're very familiar with it, you could either do this at the query level, using Cloud9 QL syntax directly, or you can do it like I'm doing here and dragging and dropping on the grid. I want to add, like this could be the equivalent of one SQL statement, and then I want to add pretty much another one. So I take the results of my prior statement and I want to just do a couple of other things. So what I want to do is I want to basically have my customer, but I also now want to derive basically an array of clicks so that I can print out my little, or show my little line chart. So I'm going to basically do here maybe click history by week. And I'm going to use a new Cloud9 QL function. It's called array. So I'm going to use that new array function because in order to have this, these charts as a cell in this new grid, the data has to be in an array format. So what field do I want to make into an array? I want my clicks field to be made into an array. And here we go. And I also need a group by customer, otherwise I'm only going to get one. Okay, so each of my customers, you can now see the click history by week. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go back into my chart down here. So here we have it. And now what I want to do is I want to go into the settings. And if I scroll down here, you can see here we can add an internal Sparkline chart. So I want to chart the history by week, and it's going to ask me what type of chart. Now we support several: pie chart, bar. I'm going to do a line, and I'm going to save that. And there we go. So as you can see, we now have our customers, but you also can now input and that could have been a pie chart, could have been a bar chart, it just had to be a line chart. So the new grid has a variety of new features that you might want to take a look at. The next visualization that is new is this one here. This is basically an image overlay heat map. So this allows for data points to be overlaid on top of a baseline image. A good use case is the ability to, see how many seats, for example, are occupied in a stadium, and the occupancy rate via a real-time refresh of data coming in, or you might want to use a floor plan or something like that. So in order to set this one up, and go to settings. Here it is, the image heat map option here. And what you need to supply is you need to supply your baseline image URL. And I think we actually have Steve from the Reds on the call, so hello Steve. So you want to supply that baseline image URL, which we have there. And then you want to basically set what your X and Y coordinates are for each of the dots that are going to appear. So obviously in this case, our X and Y correspond to an actual seat in that stadium. You have some options that you can configure, the size of the dots themselves. Basically, we're browsers. The origin is, I think it's top left. So we wanted to specify that our origin for our XY coordinates starts bottom left. And then you can scale your coordinates and things like that. You also have the ability to basically group by, which would then present your dots like here in certain colors. So that you can see, for example, the date that the tickets were purchased or the date they were scanned coming into the auditorium or the arena. So this is our a new visualization. It's quite exciting. If I actually go and show you a little example of how you can use it with real-time data coming in. Let me show you. So here we go. So you can see we have the image, and then your data is streaming in, and as it's streaming in, those points are actually displaying. So hopefully you can see that the benefit of this visualization and how handy it will be, especially with a real-time or semi-real-time example or use case. I'm going to go back to one other thing. Another thing that we've done is to allow you to customize the look and feel of the dashboard a little bit more. So if you go to dashboard settings, you should now see that these are all new. These are, so it allows you to, for example, remove borders from your widgets. You can change the background color. You can lock the dashboard. You can determine whether or not you want users to be able to drag and move the widgets around. So there's a lot of customization options on the basic vanilla template that you get when you get Knowi. There are a lot of customizations you can do to really make it look and feel like your own. And you can also add in your own custom CSS and HTML there, again, to go above and beyond what we're allowing up here. So I would encourage you all to play around with that too. Tightly integrating Knowi visualizations within your applications is obviously a very important step to, giving your users a seamless experience. So to further that integration, we've also added an on-click event and handler to several of our visualizations. And you can use it to customize what action you want to take when a certain data point is clicked on that visualization. So I'll just quickly show you an example here. I'm just using this basic grid But if you scroll down, you see down here the on-click event handler. And I will just do a basic example here. I'll hopefully paste that in. There we go. So basically, I'm just opening a very basic web page right here, but I'm passing in certain parameters to that. So you could see how this could be passed into an application that you might have. You can pass in, for example, you know, whatever parameters that you want to do. I'll save that. And then, you know, if I click on this, it would pull up that example domain that I just called, but it would be passing in parameters that you've defined there. So the on-click handler is actually quite a good addition to being able to really integrate your application with others. One other thing that we have that was a feature that was asked for a lot, and we put it in and we think it's really good, is to be able to have connected charts on our dashboard. So before, we obviously have the concept of drill downs, so we can drill down from one to the other. Let me clear that out for a minute. So you could drill down from one chart into another chart or into a completely new dashboard. We've always had that functionality. But what we've added in now under the drill down option here is to be able to connect charts on the same dashboard. So by, for example, selecting an option on this widget would refresh data on the dashboard as a whole, rather than having to drill down into the same dashboard. So in order to do this, you just click on the selected widgets. We're going to drill down into that example, the dashboard, so it's not going to let me change that. I could say when a particular field is clicked, or I can just say when anything is clicked. And then it's going to ask me what field, and I might say, for example, airline in this case. So if I look up here, you might see that Virgin America is selected up in this chart up here. But if I select on United, then you'll see that this widget, and any widget that had United as part of its query, would have been or is refreshed just for that particular thing. So that's how we can connect data across all of our charts by the selection of a particular data attribute on a chart on that dashboard. On the filtering side of things, we have added, we have the concept of personal and global filters. So personal is your end users, the people that consume your dashboards, whether that be read-only or not. And this is how they can slice and dice their data to get the view that they really want. The global filters, similar, but basically only available for admins or the creator of a dashboard. And this has a little bit more fine control and granularity. This allows you to, as an admin, to set up the default view that users will see when they go into the dashboard. And what we've added in here is also a visible or invisible filter. So basically our indicator. So what this is saying is if I, as an admin, don't wish my users to see what filters I've set up as default, I can make these invisible and they won't know. So really it's just a way of hiding or removing some of the spurious data that you might not really want your user to really see because it's not really applicable to them. And there's one other thing that we've added in. So if I go down to here, I'm going to get rid of my stuff there. Hang on one sec. On Cloud9QL, we have a couple of new Cloud9QL functions. Now, the first one you've already seen because I just used that array. You remember when I did the array to get the clicks by week? So that one is a new Cloud9QL function. But we also have another one that we added in, and we're adding these functions to our Cloud9QL syntax all the time. And this one is basically, there's two actually, there's one called upper and one called lower. And all that is doing is basically converting the values in a particular column to either be upper or lowercase. A small change, but actually really useful. So for example, I'll just show you if I drag customer up in there, you can see it's it's mixed case here. And then I do an add function and I might call it modified customer. And then I can do an upper. And as I start to type, you can see that it's going to populate here. And it's going to say, what do I want to upper? And I will say, I want to upper the value in customer if I can spell it properly. And there you go. It's just made uppercase. And obviously there's a lower equivalent as well. So that comes in really handy. Again, I've done it on the grid here, but I could do that in my Cloud9 QL at my query level. A lot of this tidy up can be done at the query level. I'm just showing you more visually on the analyze grid here. So that is about all from me today on all the new features. Obviously, anomaly detection was the largest thing we put in, and hopefully you will get to take it through its paces. So thank you for taking the time today to hear what's new in Knowi. And again, we actually release on a weekly cadence. So please always check back to our documentation portal under the What's New tab to see what new features and improvements we're adding into the product all the time. And with that, I'd like to hand you all back over to Kim for any Q&A.
Thank you, Lorraine. That was very interesting. We do actually have a couple of questions that came in. So the first one was on the anomaly detection. So they saw a list of the algorithms. Do any of those specifically support seasonality?
Yes, we have a few that support seasonality. We have the Olympic model. I think that was the one, the seasonal naive. That was the first one that I chose. So that predicts the next point. The prediction of the next point is a smoothed over average of previous end periods. And we also have the exponential smoothing model as well. So, and that also takes into consideration seasonality. So we have a few that are
fantastic. So next question, different topic, going more to the image overlay visualization that we've added.
Right.
So obviously one interesting use case for an image overlay would be around IoT and mapping out where your sensors are, like the health of the sensors. So one of the questions is, if you had like a building floor plan, and you wanted to see where all of your sensors were and then have some sort of indication of, whether there was an issue with that sensor or whether it was live or whatever. Yeah. Is that possible?
Absolutely. So I'm just pulling up the Reds example again, where we've got that live data that's streaming in. And obviously in this case, it's seats in a stadium, but that could very well be a floor plan that has all your IoT sensor locations on it in as XY coordinates. And as a sensor, maybe when offline, that dot could turn red, and if they're working, if they're healthy, they will be green. And the ability to then hover over that particular sensor, drill down into that sensor, get the information on that, and also then tie that back into the alerts, where you could actually then automatically trigger an action, like maybe via a call into a third-party system to say, hey, this sensor's offline. So how you can tie in not only the real-time sort of display of this IoT data on a chart, but how you can then link that into the alerts to actually take action from it automatically.
Great. Good answer. And then we got one last one here. If you guys have any questions, please use the Q&A button on your console, and you can type in any questions you might have. We've got one last one here. So on the on-click handler piece, I think you sort of mentioned this, but instead of going to like a website with URL parameters, if you had an app, and you had visualizations already embedded in the app, and then you wanted them to be able to click on something in that visualization, and then that sends them to another part of the app. Is that possible? Yeah,
it is possible. So with that, I don't know where I did it now. I thought I did it here. So obviously, all we're really doing here with this is allowing you to determine what you click on, and then what parameters you may or may not pass into that query. As long as it's all available, as long as all of those data attributes are available in that underlying query, you can pass anything into that target URL or whatever, or application. So yeah, you could take data on a chart, click on it, and then automatically invoke your application, passing in parameters that are required at that time.
Okay, great. That seems to be the last of the questions. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody for their time today. We will be sending out the recording probably tomorrow morning. It'll be in your inbox. And if you have any other questions that you think of afterwards, please feel free to email Lorraine. And again, thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.